Hey y'all, so I just woke up and I'm probably going back to bed in a minute, but I have been scrolling for a little bit and doing the job that I do. I feel like it's my responsibility to kind of say something on here because I'm seeing a lot of people who are incredibly upset and questioning their faith and angry because and being like, psychics are fake, astrologists are fake, this is all bullshit, da da da. Like, I believed in all this for all because multiple people made incorrect predictions about this election. And if you all remember, a few days ago, I said, please stop asking me to post content about it. I feel it's irresponsible and I will not do it. I have been a psychic professional psychic for over half of my life. I've been a psychic my whole life. But when you've been doing it that many years, and there are a lot of people on this app who haven't, and that's no shade to them, that's no hate to them, I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm saying when you do this for a very long time, you learn a lot of things. And one of the things you learn is responsibility to the people that you are giving messages to. And when I said I did not feel that it would be helpful for me to get on here and do that, and I can show y'all, I correctly predicted what we see now, and if it changes, then I was fucking wrong. But I have timestamp messages to friends, to whatever, saying, I think this is what's going to happen. So I could have made that post very easily. Okay? But I didn't. And the reason that I didn't is because of things like this. And the reason that I said that a lot of people were just posting for views and clicks and likes is because they were. And because of the fact that, and look, some people genuinely fucked up. And I don't think they're any less psychic or good at astrology because of it. When you are reading a situation like that, and this is where I did not trust myself enough, because we are taking other people, like, people take the things that we say on here very literally. When we put this content out, we cannot control who sees it. Okay? There are people who are in spiritual psychosis that see these videos. There are people who are literally hanging on by a thread that see our content. If we don't take that into consideration, that those people hang on to every word we say. Now look, can we prevent that? Can we eliminate every single thing we might say wrong that might send someone down a spiral? No. But we have to be very cognizant and conscious of the things we say and try our best to avoid that. And so, bias is a huge thing. And I'm not saying I wanted it to turn out one way or the other. What I'm saying is I consciously looked around, pattern recognition, touch of the tism, and thought, this is what's going to happen. And I made that assumption logically by looking at all of the things going on in the world. I did not trust myself to remove that logical bias that my brain was forming from the messages I was receiving. And therefore, it would have been irresponsible for me to post that content, regardless of if it was right or wrong. And I think a lot of people who posted content about it got caught up in bias. And not meaning to, none of us ever mean to get caught up in bias. But we do. We're human. We make mistakes. And I have only so far seen one person come on here and say, when I made my prediction, I told you guys that I was operating out of a place of bias and I was looking for the best case scenario, right? And that's incredibly responsible of them, that they kind of put that disclaimer before anything they said. That's someone who's been doing it for a long time and knows that sometimes as humans, we cannot separate what we think is going to happen or what we want is going to happen as a person from the messages that we're receiving or the things we want to see in the messages we're receiving. So I say all that to say, anyone who is upset and questioning, first of all, we look crazy enough doing what we do. So when people do things like that and they're wrong, it makes us look crazier. Okay? It doesn't help our case. All right. So there's a level of professional responsibility that we should have, and that, quite frankly, I don't see on this app a lot. And I'm not hating on anyone for that. You live and you learn. The longer you do it, the more you'll learn. But I say all that to say, for anyone who is spiraling, questioning their faith, thinking, well, but so-and-so said that if I, like, this deity wouldn't let us down, and now this has happened, and da-da-da-da-da. Please don't do that to yourself. And I know that my words are not going to be a consolation for you, right? And they're not going to fix anything. But as someone who has been involved in this a very, very long time, you can only take the words of other people into account so much. Your spirituality has to be your spirituality. Your path has to be your path. Your beliefs have to be your beliefs. We can allow other people to advise us and take those things into consideration. But at the end of the day, you have to sit with what you know to be right and you know to be true. And you cannot let someone who was wrong about whatever they said was going to happen make you question all the things that you have believed in, or all the work you have done spiritually, or any of those things. Okay? And everybody's in a very emotional place right now. Again, no matter what side they're on. But, and so this is not the time for me to dive deep into this subject, because when everybody's in an emotional state, they're not going to hear me, even with words of comfort, right? And even with words of reassurance, and even me saying, you know, if those people made you question what you believe, that's not where we should be, right? Nobody's going to really hear that and absorb that right now. And I'll dive into that at a later date. But this is also to say to people who do put out content like that, and who am I, right? Like, nobody, you don't take my fucking advice. But we all need to be very careful. There's a moth that just landed next to me, about what we put on this app, and not just about politics or world events or any of those things, which that's another thing. People predicting world events. Look, you might be right, but the anxiety and the dire consequences that you could literally cause for people who could be or could go into spiritual psychosis because of the things you say, that is a huge responsibility. And we cannot control our audience enough to say things like that on a platform like this. It is irresponsible. And there will be people who say, well, I'm not responsible for if other people can't accept the news. Like, I'm just getting what I'm getting, and Spirit told me to say. I'm not here to argue with you. That's just my perspective. But for me, I will always consider your well-being and know that I may be wrong. Because, listen, I'm right 98% of the time. But that 2% could be a real bitch for someone. That could ruin someone's life. And that's a responsibility that I and anyone else that you allow to be in your energy and tell you anything about your life should take very, very fucking seriously. And if they don't, they should really, really reconsider that. And if they don't, you should reconsider allowing them into your energy. And again, I'm not saying this to say I'm better than anybody, or I'm hating on anybody, or any of those things. I'm saying this so that you guys can protect yourselves, because sometimes it is so easy for us to want to believe someone. Especially, again, when maybe they're right 98% of the time. I'm not saying these people aren't legit. But bias is a bitch. And when you have not been doing this long enough to understand how your own bias can affect things, again, whether it's because it's what you want to happen, or it's because you're seeing, like I described with me, like pattern recognition, right? That can create bias as well, regardless of what we want the outcome to be. So it's like, I think you guys get where I'm going with this. So please, keep these comments nice, love and support each other, regardless of where you're at with this. But don't allow other people to make you question yourself, your faith, what you believe is bigger than us, just because they were not accurate. That is not a representation of spirituality or the spiritual community as a whole. Again, we are human, we make mistakes, and we need to factor that in when we take other people's opinions and readings into consideration. I love you guys.